Welcome to Overwatch. This time we're going to be looking at the Hanzo gameplay preview recently released by Blizzard. Like with all these videos, I recommend you go and watch the video without my commentary first and then come back to this one just to have a feel for the game, and there should be a link below just popping on your screens now. If you click that you can go and watch the original game and then come back to me. So this is an interesting game. It takes place on King's Row, which is a map that we've seen before in the Zenyatta gameplay preview. I did a little bit of a map analysis on that one. We'll talk a little bit about it when we start the game. Just before we begin, there's one or two things I want you to focus on before we start the video, just so you can think about it as the game goes by. It's something I want to sort of draw people's attention to, and it's something I brought up in the Hanzo character analysis when I made that video, and it's the ability for Hanzo to duel. So the last video we had McCree, and McCree is the dueling god. In a 1v1, no one is stronger, no one is better, at least at close range. Hanzo is kind of the complete opposite. Any time that Hanzo is actively engaging someone, as in they are fighting him back in an active fashion, especially in a 1 versus 1, he does very badly. There's going to be a few fights he has against Widowmaker, for example, who is quite weak in a close quarters environment, and yet he still struggles, and we'll highlight that as the game goes on, but I just want that in the back of your head. So the map is King's Row, and we get to see a lot more of it this time than we saw with the Zenyatta gameplay preview, where we actually get to see it turned from the original control point into the payload stage, where it has an additional 2 points where you have to push it to the beginning of the factory and then to the end of the factory. King's Row is typified by having a lot of alleyways, a lot of ways to sort of get around and sneak around, and this is going to be very good for Hanzo. We're going to keep a close eye on his mobility and the way he exploits it and the way he uses it to set himself up in flanking positions, which is going to be very important for his overall playstyle. Okay, let's meet the teams. We have on the attacking team, Hanzo, of course. We have the ever-lovely Pharah and Mercy pairing, once again. We have Zarya in the front lines, Symmetra keeping up the rear, and Tracer assisting on the flanks. And for our defending team, they have Zarya also in the front line, they have Widowmaker and Bastion making up the rear line, Zenyatta in support, and Pharah and McCree to deal out the damage. I'll also briefly mention that you can change heroes during the game, but Blizzard have made a conscious choice not to do that during these matches. And welcome to the lovely King's Row. This is the attacking standing position. And we have an interesting start here. There's a few different ways out of this original attacking area, and it looks like the attacking team is going to focus on going up the flank. This takes you into a nice little alleyway and a building, and also we see Hanzo's excellent juggling skills. This is actually a good demonstration of his attack speed. The drop off of that is, of course, that you will have very short range arrows. But yes, the attackers are going to focus on getting into this flank and getting into this building on the left side here. It just keeps you nice and safe. Meanwhile, Hanzo tries to get some shots onto McCree. He does fire up his sonic arrow to reveal him, and he's going to try and curve the arrow and get a shot on McCree. Unfortunately, he doesn't quite get it, but Zarya is up there, and Zarya does actually pick him off, hence seeing the recon assist. Now, Hanzo has unique advantages, such as the ability to go up here, and he does spot the Pharah floating serenely by, and it's just a very easy pick off for him. Symmetra has the Orb of Discord on her, and that's not really the best target for her, for the Orb of Discord, simply because Symmetra doesn't really want to be that active in the fighting. Zarya eating some damage, Tracer on the other flank as well. This is a dangerous position because you have Hanzo and Tracer both flanking, and Pharah in the air. They're going to lay out a lot of damage onto this control point, and it's forced the attacking team back already to get back into the archway, to get back and try and salvage this position. They've basically lost this entire statue area already. So you can see them there sort of all tapped back. The Sonic Arrow is doing an excellent job of spotting them all out, but Pharah does manage to get that kill there, and Widowmaker is just across the pathway. This is going to force Mercy and Hanzo into retreat. They can't really stay there and hope to hold off the Widowmaker and Pharah. And as you can see, Hanzo's dueling power is quite limited. He can't afford to fight Pharah in this tight one-on-one environment. Unfortunately, Pharah has backed off, but Widowmaker, again, a narrow pathway. He can't actually get there and can't actually afford to fight her that directly. He's forced to go up here, and he does get right into her face and starts firing off arrows, does miss the first one, hits the second, hits the third, actually misses the third, and manages to eventually pick her off, but it's a slow process. This is an excellent position. He's got, sight over Bastion, over the shield, can do a lot of damage and can force the team back. And this is basically going to get the team the point. Zarya has fired her ult onto the point and pulled people on it. It's not really going to do much to stop them, especially with the dead Bastion. Pharah trying to lay out some damage, not going to do too much on her own, I think. She's just going to be forced to either back away or die. I think she might have just gone down there, in fact. Oh no, she's still alive. She's still soldiering on somehow. She's going to be forced to run, and Hanzo again is going to choose to go through the flanking route, which he should be doing, rather than going up the middle with the rest of the team. Symmetra is going to probably try and get his teleporter set up in the meantime, as I imagine she's built up her ultimate during that first assault. The attacking team was never really stalled there, you notice, so they've got a lot of time now to push this payload to the next point. Looks like the first arrow hit, the second arrow didn't, but Zarya picked up the kill. This is where a kill feed would be very, very useful to see. Zarya, one-on-one against Hanzo. Hanzo can afford to fire an arrow in, but is forced to run. Zarya just has so much more sustained power, can just constantly drill him down with that beam. And here we sort of get a slowdown in the game, as the defending team doesn't really seem to muster a defense on this pathway. They just seem to let the payload just get towards it. This is an excellent use of Dragon Strike. Fires it straight so it will go through the building and basically cut across the entire pathway where the defending team is set up. Widowmaker's in a good position here. She's all the way at the back there. She's going to be very, very difficult to deal with. Hanzo can't really afford to fight here because he does slow down when he knocks an arrow, and that just asks for a headshot, to be honest. So Tracer and Hanzo are going to go around the flank. They're going to try and dislodge Widowmaker, who is long gone. He does gain a Discord orb, but there is no one here to follow it up. McCree uses his ultimate, but I can't really see what he's doing with that. And here we see a flank on Zenyatta, but he does whiff the arrows. He does miss them, unfortunately, and as such doesn't get much benefit. He also whiffs the scatter arrow and takes a lot of damage from Zenyatta. This is a good position, however. He's behind the enemy team, they aren't paying attention to him, and he can start drilling arrows into people's back. Unfortunately, hello Zenyatta, goodbye Hanzo. And this is the real weakness that can be exploited. Hanzo can't do much about being in a direct one-on-one fight, especially when there's some room to strafe around, to jump around, and he does get resurrected, but hello Bastion, and almost dies immediately. Mercy also takes a lot of damage, and then McCree comes up behind him, hits him in the back of the head with a flashbang, and then puts a bullet in his head. And yeah, that's just unfortunate positioning. Slightly whiffed Mercy ultimate, I think. Unfortunately, didn't manage to get much out of that. You can see the payload isn't moving from that little bar at the top. They are keeping pressure on it. The defending team doesn't really have a way to shove them off here. They have to rely on Zarya and Pharah to sort of push them away. They do have Bastion and Widowmaker to retain position, but can't really push them off the point. And that's just going to mean it's going to slowly grind forward. A good ultimate from Pharah, but she is completely exposed and there is no follow-up there. There's nothing to keep the enemy team distracted, and so she does get a lot of damage drilled into her, and Mercy can't do much about a high amount of damage getting pumped into someone. That's an excellent use of Dragon Strike, firing it at the Bastion, who can't really move out the way. Zarya also does get picked off by the high damage, and Zenyatta unfortunately is out of position, but Bastion has set up once again. He did actually start transforming the moment he saw Hanzo pop up on that high ground, and so moved away. But the payload has reached the point. That's another bonus amount of time for the attacking team, and now they just have to get through this factory area. This is going to be a slow grind. There's a lot of good points for the defenders to get into position. And does whiff these two arrows, doesn't quite pick off the Pharah, firing off her ultimate, but she doesn't manage to do too much with that. Zarya with the healing orb on her, and Zenyatta. Yeah. That's not embarrassing at all. Widowmaker is in position in that cubbyhole at the top. She's actually quite dangerous up there, but the attacking team has managed to sort of push forward and get control of this area here. Hanzo, nuzzling walls, misses that climb as well, but does actually manage to get into this room, and hello Bastion. How you doing, friend? Oh, hello Pharah. How you doing, girl? Let's not take some rockets to the face. And he puts the sonic carrier up so he has vision of where Pharah is. Pharah has since moved away, so he knows he's safe to run this way. He's got a Zarya behind him, but Tracer very kindly puts a bomb on her and cleans her up. Widowmaker again on that top position. She's right above people. This isn't necessarily the best position for her just because they are a bit too close. But you can see he just can't hit her. Throws a punch, misses, like jumps around, climbs back up again, throws another punch, and does actually manage to beat her, but that's slightly embarrassing and slightly messy for our highly skilled Japanese assassin. It does give him this high ground position, however. It's quite a strong place for him to be, but he is going to see Bastion setting up and fire a Dragon Strike right at it, and this is a disappointing moment for the defending team. They have 3 ultimates firing off just out of sync, and we'll talk about this moment after the game because it is absolutely crucial, but needless to say, if that was done slightly better, they could have held off for another minute perhaps and just completely stalled this attack in its progress. Widowmaker and Bastion making up an admirable backline, keeping them back. McCree fires off his ultimate, forces Hanzo back into cover. McCree's ultimate not able to do much in this area. There is a lot of cover to duck behind, and the moment you duck behind cover, McCree loses the charge on its ultimate, can't find anyone to shoot and can't do much with it. Zarya, again doing an admirable job, standing on the point, Pharah coming in to deal some damage, and Zenyatta following behind. Zaryas have a war of ultimates, but unfortunately the attacking Zarya gets it off first, and there's a Tracer to follow up, so there's a lot of damage being dealt, and this is where Hanzo can really excel, ducking in and out of the corner, charging up his arrow, doing a lot of damage, does pick off McCree with the assist of, I think that's an assist from Pharah that actually gets the kill, and this is where Hanzo can deal a lot of damage. Got around the flank, got behind people, and now he's just stood next to people who are occupied, fighting other people, so he can drill arrows into them, dealing insane damage, and as such, they score the victory. And there we have it. It's an action-packed game. I don't think the defending team ever really caught a break there. They were just constantly being hammered down, unfortunately. And we're going to see the play of the game. And this is a disappointing moment that I am going to spend a long time talking about, because I think it demonstrates the difference between a team that coordinates its ultimates and doesn't. And just how that little bit of uncoordination can cause problems. Pharah with a very admirable score. She was the main thrusting assault. As such, it's not too surprising to see she's dealt a lot of damage. So let's begin our discussion on the focus point that I set up for this game. Hanzo as a duelist is not a strong proposition. Hanzo will struggle against anyone moving around duking and jiving, and that's simply because Hanzo's damage is very staggered, and I'm not sure if there's an actual FPS term for this, where his damage will come in very big chunks. So he'll deal a high damage arrow if it lands, and that will take off a huge amount of your hit points. However, if he misses that arrow, he loses that chunk. Meanwhile, a lot of other heroes have a lot more sort of smooth damage curves. They can deal a lot more damage over a steady period of time, and that means missing their, occasional chunk isn't going to be as likely. It means that, their time to kill will be faster on average, as long as they aren't completely whiffing their shots. Meanwhile, one Hanzo miss will set back your time to kill by a huge amount. And that's the problem with Hanzo as a duelist. That's where he will struggle when someone's duking and jiving and moving around. And I'm sure if you play a lot of FPS games, especially the stuff with very precise weapons, such as using DMRs for example in Battlefield, or if you're playing a sniper in Team Fortress 2, you'll know the feeling of what happens when you miss a shot or miss some important shots, that you'll ultimately pretty much lose the fight simply because you missed one shot. But we can also see where Hanzo is very strong. When the enemy team isn't looking at him, when he manages to find that key flank and set up in a position where he can just pour arrows into people and deal huge amounts of damage. We see some excellent kills, for example, on the Bastion, and a few, good sneak ups on Widowmaker, who shouldn't actually be caught out that easily. She should be setting up her Widow Mine in preparation. Maybe Tracer's already picked it up and, been gassed by it. As such, has cleared the way for Hanzo. I also want to linger on this moment with the ultimates. So you might have heard me talk about this concept of layering ultimates before, and what we see here is we're going to see the use of 3 ultimates in a row. We're going to see Zarya's ultimate fire, then Pharah's, and then finishing it off with Zenyatta's ultimate. Now, if they'd have just held on for a few more moments, if they'd have just backed up and kept it cool, communicated, hey, we've got all this stuff ready, let's use it, they could have seen some very easy kills. Unfortunately, Zarya fires off her ultimate, Pharah scrambles to get in position, fires off hers and is completely exposed, and then Zenyatta rolls up after everyone's already dead with his ultimate on, and doesn't quite, do the amazing healing that we know he can deliver. And it's very disappointing to see, because this could be an excellent opportunity to show just how powerful it is. I mean, Pharah does have the healing orb on her, but it's just a little bit too late, it's a little bit too slow. She's already taken a lot of damage, and as such they don't manage to get the damage they need to stop this assault. They do slow it down a lot, it does buy them a little bit of time, but it could have bought them more, and that's unfortunate. And to round things out, we're going to spend a moment talking about the 2 team setups, because as they are fixed teams, we can get a good kind of look into the microcosm of that team. Where that team will excel and where they won't, perhaps. So the attacking team is actually a very nicely balanced kit. They have 2 people on the flanks who can run around and do a lot of work to sort of disrupt the defense that the defending team is going to try and set up, who have a very static, very kind of immobile position thanks to Bastion and Widowmaker. And meanwhile you have Mercy Zarya and Pharah, who can run up the middle and deal quite a lot of damage. Zarya, Pharah and Mercy sync very, very nicely because Zarya can put her shield onto the Pharah, Mercy can provide her extra healing, and as such, Pharah isn't going to have that weakness that she might have when combined with Reinhardt, where Pharah is in the air, Reinhardt isn't in the air, and as such, his shield isn't covering her. And Mercy and Pharah, of course, are just the dream team. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that a damage amp on rocket launchers is a very, 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 very potent combo, and Mercy is basically built to support Pharah with her ability to get into the air. It also helps Mercy a lot by giving her additional mobility and additional ways to get out of danger. Trust me, when you spot an ally when you're in danger as Mercy and they are somewhere safe, jetting towards them with Guardian Angel is one of the slickest, nicest, most beautiful feelings in the world. So let's have a look at the defending team, because, you know, they seem to have problems, and they seem to have problems really setting up a good, solid line. And I see the problems coming forward from two places in particular. First of all is the Zarya pick. Unfortunately, she does prop up at the bottom of the board, but there's not too much she could have done here. She's trying to slow down the assaults and slow down the attacking pressure, and try and keep them back enough so that Bastion and Widowmaker can clean up. Now, Widowmaker in this team is okay. She's okay on King's Row, but I think I would have preferred a Tourbillon or Symmetra. Why? Because Widowmaker has to deal with two flanks and a Pharah who's jetting around firing rockets at her all day, and a Zarya who she can't really headshot, and Symmetra who's too far back and can't really be stopped anyway with a headshot. She can do a lot of good work, but unfortunately in this case, she's going to be constantly paranoid about Tracer coming up behind her, asking her what she's looking at, doing all that nonsense, and Hanzo coming up behind her and putting a fist in her face like we saw. The Zenyatta pick is also kind of an interesting one. I think the team didn't have enough focusing power to actually make full use of that Orb of Discord. They didn't have the ability to sort of drill someone down. Well, Bastion can do a lot with that. He can't really do it to someone who's on the flanks, and it seemed like the Orbs of Discord were going onto those flanking units every so often. So Bastion never really had the time or opportunity to drill all that high damage he can deal into that individual. What I would have liked to have seen maybe is perhaps actually Reinhardt on the defending team rather than Zarya. I think that Reinhardt could have given the backline a lot more protection. His shield could have made Bastion basically unkillable and stopped any pressure from the sort of the core front pushing of the attacking team, with Zarya, Pharah and Mercy unable to get through that combo. If you put Reinhardt in front of Bastion, that's what, 3000 shield? That's a lot to deal with, and that's going to be very difficult to punch through. It also perhaps gives Widowmaker a little bit more flexibility, and it makes it a bit harder to flank, because if you jump around a corner and you see Reinhardt, you're going to get a hammer in the face, you're going to get charged into a wall, and you're going to get killed. These are just my brief thoughts. Of course, this doesn't take into account the relative skill levels of the players. Unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult to guess how good various people are, simply because they don't show their real names, and as such, we don't know who's the heroes and who's the zeros. But I want to thank you for watching to the end. My name is OneAmongstMany, and I hope you enjoyed this commentary and this analysis of the Hanzo gameplay preview. There will be more like it coming up, as well as some important channel announcements, so stay tuned. Toodles.